Hi, everyone. This Women's Day, we are going to pause, not to celebrate the achievements, but to reflect on the system that shaped women's growth. We all know that we are living in a time of rapid transformations. Technology is accelerating careers, artificial intelligence is reshaping industries, and even global mobility is redefining work. But deep down, somehow we all know that progress doesn't come alone or doesn't guarantee any confidence. Access to technology does not guarantee any clarity. Opportunity does not guarantee any directions. And that's where Connect to Roots comes in picture. We believe that mentoring plays a crucial role in guiding everyone as they transit from education to industries to leadership. Today, we are honored to host Ms. Angela Weinberger, a certified executive coach and global mobility expert whose work supports professionals navigating international careers and complex leadership journeys. Angela brings deep expertise in coaching for experts and global leaders. And we are grateful she's joining us to explore how structured guidance, whether the mentoring or professional coachings, can shape the future of women's leadership. Angela, welcome to Connect to Roots.
Thank you for the warm welcome.
So we would like to, have some discussion, especially on this Women's Day related to the women's leadership topic, and we would love to hear from you. So on this day where we celebrate women's leadership and resilience, how do you see structured guidance, let it be mentoring or professional coaching, is shaping the next generation of women leaders? Over to you.
Right. So I hope you don't mind if I go a little bit into the methodological part about, some of the structured guidance that we talk about, because I think there's a lot of confusion out there about terminology. So, for example, we very often, we hear the term mentoring and then we hear the term coaching. And it's not the same thing. Sometimes people muddle that up. So, mentoring, what we usually talk about when we talk about mentoring, this is usually a more senior, older, like my age, dinosaur professional who's supporting a more junior professional in their journey. This connection could come about either through the common workplace, common employer, or, for example, I now work with some student organization, alumni organizations I used to be a member of back in the day, and I'm supporting a more junior professional as a mentor. So what we're doing here is usually that the mentor gives advice based from their experience, based on their journey, based on, them looking back on what happened to them and how they handled certain situations. So this is usually a longer term collaboration. Most of the time it's about a year, sometimes even 2 or 3. Sometimes these relationships, they last for 5 to 10 years. So it's usually a more like a long-term relationship, builds on trust, builds on some common factors. And usually, these meetings are rather casual. So for example, you could meet over lunch or like an online chat, but it's very casual. Whereas coaching is done by a professional who's trained in the art of coaching. So, we, as an executive coach, I'm a master executive coach. So I've worked with, let's say, 600 to 700 professionals, expatriates, leaders in the past. And I have acquired that skill of asking good questions. We always assume that the other person is on the same eye-to-eye level. And, usually in our realm, these people are very intelligent people. I don't need to tell them what to do. Actually, AI can sometimes do that better. Now, what I'm doing is provide them a space to think strategically. And also I give them like some psychological safety so they can think about their past or some things, that bother them in the workplace, for example. And then we work with the issues at hand. So there's also not a structured training program. Yeah, sometimes there is a confusion about that as well. So the coach pulls the experience from the person that is sitting in front of them. And usually the coach assumes this other person has all the resources to solve their issues or problems or the the things that they find, that they tackle. And a coaching relationship is usually a shorter term relationship. Mostly, I would say 6 to 9 months. In my space, we expand that up to 1 year because intercultural and international transitions are very complex and there's a multitude of issues. So we usually work with our clients for at least 1 year. There's a high frequency in coaching. Yeah. So for example, if you and I would work together, we would work together like on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. You would see me all the time, more often than your partner probably. And usually these sessions are rather short, so like 45 minutes, and they're very structured. There's a beginning, there's a middle part, and an end. There are takeaways, and the client, goes away with action items and tasks. Now, having said that basic difference, and now if we apply this to women and women empowerment, especially in all these male-dominated fields that we're talking about, technology, AI, banking, professional services, the problem is coaching can only go to a certain level, mentoring as well. Yeah. So at the same time, we need to also work on systemic issues. So, we can never see these like structured guidance topics in isolation. So, for example, what I mean by that, systemic issues. The leadership of a company needs to be committed to have, for example, more women on the leadership team, more women at the board, at the board level. And for that to happen, if you think about it, you need to start very early to bring in more women up the ranks. So, for example, if you want to have 30% women on the board, you need to have 60% women entering the field, because some women will drop off naturally, while they're starting a family. So, if you think about that, your intake of graduates has to be higher so that you can actually achieve the 30% women on the board level. And that's why I'm also an advocate for, more like systemic, strategic solutions to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that includes quotas. And that includes also active support of women reaching the next level. So it's a long answer, but I hope you understand, that it's a problem that needs to be tackled from different angles. Coaching alone, mentoring alone won't help women succeed in the workplace.
Thank you so much. That was a question which I definitely wanted to, initially put across, that let that audience know first the difference, how the coaching and mentoring is, different, and especially in this AI era, which is probably the fit. So glad you have explained that it has its own role, both has its own importance, but one fits in some certain aspects, one fits in another aspects. So thank you for that. With
Exactly.
that, I come up to the second question. Yeah.
Let me maybe just give you an additional idea. Usually what I tell my clients after the end of coaching is that they should find a mentor now. So that, because then they have built some basic skills and understanding, they have started to build networks. And then it's really useful to have a mentor helping them along. And so, they keep working on the topics, on the skills that they've learned during the journey with the coach. So what I'm trying to say is these are complementary, not exclusive. Yeah.
Oh, that's a very good idea, which you said, that once for the initial build up, let the coaches be there so that they can bring it to a certain extent. And once they reach that edge, let that mentor handhold till, they really become the independent and self-sufficient. That's very nice. Yeah. That's a good one. But still, what happens? Many talented women who are there, they are still struggling with the visibility, confidence, even navigating this global or male-dominated workspace. So, from your experience, how can the structured support system help bridge these gaps?
Yeah. And I think, again, this is also an area where the mentor can support. But not only the mentor, even the direct line manager, the manager of the manager, somebody needs to open the door and help the woman get seen. So it's not only about the woman developing competencies and, building structured networks in the organization, seeking sisterhood, for example, seeking support from others. But it's also the people who actually have an influence on her career that need to be supportive and open opportunities. For example, when I was a more junior professional, one of my managers, she would make sure that I get nominated into projects. She would make sure that I get nominated into high visibility transformation projects. Yeah. So, and that's, how you help another woman in her career. So, because we can't do everything ourselves, we need somebody who's pulling us in as well.
Yeah. So maybe but yeah, some women at that senior level should be there who can pull this bottom level. So it's probably a journey from
Yeah, and,
entering
and and that's
other
where you need
women.
the allies. Yeah, so like when we talk about
Yeah.
allyship, that doesn't necessarily have to be a woman. That could also be a
Yeah.
mentor, but it could also be anybody who thinks, "Oh, look, this is such a talented woman. Why don't we
Yeah.
ask her, to hold the presentation instead of asking her manager, who's usually holding the presentation?"
Correct. Yeah.
It's all about, like giving them a chance to shine.
Yeah. So, but yeah, but again, now in today's date, when the things are more influenced through technology and automation, when you spoke about the presentation, that's where the point comes, right? The technology and automations are increasingly influenced. What are the core values which you feel that the women leaders consciously preserves and actively they also pass on to the next generation?
So I'm struggling a little bit with the gender differentiation when it comes to values. I have to say, I find that wrong. Yeah. So when we think about core values, I think, there should not be a differentiator by gender.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think there are some values that at the moment are neglected or, are very often sacrificed for in the name of efficiency, in the name of productivity, in the name of shareholder value. And I'm not even talking about the bigger politics outside of, the corporate world. We're not addressing that today. But let's say, like if we think about AI transformation, this is not a male-dominated subject. Women can use AI as
Yeah.
well. Yeah? So,
Yeah.
but what could
Yeah.
be a value to preserve for anyone in the organization? Well, humans first. Yeah? So that could be a value or a principle that we give ourselves. So when we don't know who to prioritize, we're not prioritizing our laptop or our robot, we're prioritizing the human in front of us. That could be a value. Or another value could be to think about, okay, how important are relationships in the workplace, everywhere else? And to preserve relationships, teamwork, groups, make sure that, we can still work together, we can still collaborate. What I see a lot in my practice is, the problem of silos. People do not know how to work together anymore. Everybody's just doing
Yeah.
their job, like as if we were all robots. We're not, this is one of
Yeah.
our strengths. One of our strengths is human collaboration. This creates innovation. This creates productivity. This creates added value. So this is also, these are the things that we need to bring back into the workplace. We're asking the humans to come back to the workplace, but we also need to create an environment, the structures, the organizations that actually help us, be innovative and work together. And then the last thing that came to my mind here is sustainable development. So preserving the environment, preserving, like thinking long term and not just short term,
Yes.
not just thinking about the next 5 weeks, but really thinking about the next 50 years, the next generations, and how we preserve whatever we're building. Yeah. I think these are the three most important ones.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you are right. See, this actually particular question, it applies to all. Like, there's no gender bias in that. But because we were specific today on the Women's Day, I raised a point of women. But there were 3 points which even I was thinking, like, for example, dealership. So I always believe instead of leadership, so women, especially women, have that capability, right? That they take everyone all together. It's not that AI has come and then, so integrity plays a very important role, right? So I think integrity and then dealerships that taking all the women together instead of just depending on, I have done it. It's me who has done it. That is something which a woman probably always makes sure is not in the picture, right? She takes a team along together. So yeah, I think women in that leadership roles really, probably that's why also women has always been chosen, or maybe accepted, probably in the senior positions, because the integrity values which she carries, right, and no ego, right. So that takes really a long way, not only her but in the entire team. It's good.
And I honestly wish in 50 years we would not align this to men and women, or
Yeah.
but we would
Yeah.
say no, we all share these values.
Yes.
This is what we share because we want to preserve humanity in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what. Correct. So now, if you really could offer one piece of guidance, especially now to the, because it's on the Women's Day, to the young women who are stepping into the leadership role in the corporate world, what is that you would like to put across?
Yeah, so I think this is also a tough one. But one of the things that I had to reflect on when I was a younger woman in the professional world is that I often assumed that just by working hard, I sort of will be discovered. Somebody will find me and they will see how hard I work and, how the
Mm.
excellent results I bring to the table, and that will be everything. And that will be enough, to have a career and be promoted. But that's not the case. You also, I think what would be a really good advice is to invest in the networking karma. So help others so that you will also be helped later on in your career. So build relationships early, start to build professional relationships across the globe, not only in your very little silo and bubble. And then another one I have is to get your finances in order, invest,
Mm.
and start a business.
Yeah, that's a very good one. I really liked it. I think we are done with this. Thank you so much, Ms. Angela, for sharing your insight and experience with us. Actually, today's conversations remind us that even though that technology is transforming how we work, but internal growth still requires guidance, courage, and human connections. With this, at the Connect2Roots, we really remain committed to building mentoring ecosystems that empower the next generation. Happy Women's Day to all our listeners, and may we continue to rise and help others also rise with us. Thank you.
Fantastic. It was great meeting you.